Hello everybody, welcome back to Design at Columbia. This is our third meeting of the session, and today we're going to be talking about sketching. So, but first we want to make sure to highlight some student project progress, because we have been seeing some really great deliverables being submitted in this week. So the first we want to highlight is streamlining CU's digital tools. This is by Grace, Anna, and Joanne. So they've been working on kind of Columbia's like online space. So the first thing that they've shown us are the archetypes. Well, they've called them archetypes. Perrin's going to talk about the difference between archetypes and personas in a minute, just because there's been a little bit of confusion with that this past week. But we thought there was some great presentation here, some great thought into that's been put into the persona here. Their motivations, such as befriending Elon Musk, maintaining a good GPA, giving them a photo as well as a name and their graduating year and their school, really putting a face to the name and bringing a persona to life. We've got a few more. I'm gonna skip over them or talk about them quite briefly because there are quite a lot of slides to get through. But yeah, some lovely quotes such as, "I'm just starting my poli-sci journey. It's been nice to see what paths I've chosen before and where they ended up after college." Again, really nice persona. And again, for another one, I'm not going to discuss that in detail. Here we have a very well-designed journey map. It might be hard to see without zooming in, but I'll kind of walk you through it very briefly. So on the left-hand side, you've got an axis for your emotional journey, and here you've got the starting point. It might be slightly helpful to have arrows, but that's the kind of feedback you can give, we can give when we're returning it. But here you've got your starting point, kind of the first stage in your journey with looking at online Columbia things and choosing classes is going to the CU bulletin. And this team has highlighted all of their pain points with these kind of orange dashed lines. So the first one that we come across is the online version and the paper version of the CU bulletin do not match. And then after that, we go to the CU directory. We enter this kind of circle where we go through Virgil and then Virgil Plus, where we have a few pain points there. Kind of going along, then we go through another circle of Culpa and then your connections. So asking friends, teachers, alumni, what classes did they enjoy, all of that stuff. And a key pain point here, which I'm sure many of us have experienced, is that Culpa hasn't been updated in a while and not all courses or departments receive the same attention. And then we get back onto the track and we're finally onto SSOL and we think we found our classes, and then you have to go through, you have too many processes that you have to go through to ultimately get into SSOL as a pain point on this journey. Then we get to registration and it's all looking great until you get waitlisted, and then you have to go through the entire process again and end up at this circle. And I'm sure many of us can relate to this journey. I know I definitely can, but this is a lovely journey map kind of to show each stage of the process, as well as pain points and opportunities that have been highlighted in blue. I haven't really spoken about those. But yeah, that was a lovely representation of that.
Awesome, cool. I'll take this next one. So this is by Carl, pretty much looking at the language learning, acquiring language experience. We really enjoyed it. The acquirer's journey. Next slide. So what he did, which we thought was really interesting, was kind of took a metaphor of Nemo's journey from the reef to the drop to the open ocean, and used this metaphor as the journey. And he's kind of represented the journey on each slide, like phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 that we'll see. And we kind of like this as an example of a journey map that doesn't necessarily have to be super visual, but here we still see on the right-hand side some of the learnings, on the left-hand side, the user's voice with nice highlights. And you know, this metaphor really helps us understand the experience of being at home in the reef, feeling comfortable. and then kind of moving to the drop and going into the open ocean. Venturing into the open waters of more advanced comprehension and basic conversation. Next up. And building deep structural connections and navigating conversation. So next up. I just thought that these visuals too, like how the open ocean feels at times, this is really helpful for language learners to kind of like visualize what that feels like, especially if you haven't learned a new language before or gone super deep into comprehension, then this helps you understand the emotions of kind of going into the deep ocean, the open ocean of language learning. So again, metaphors can help you communicate the user's emotions, especially to stakeholders that haven't experienced what your users are experiencing. Next up, these were just some of the key takeaways. We'll kind of step through them, but I think these key takeaways are pretty clear that he's done some really good research and kind of gotten into the deeper parts, like pacing is key. Personas, next up. I love the imagery here. We have age, occupation, and a really detailed about me, a little bio. So I like this because you can use these personas with other stakeholders or other people on your team and be like, cool, what would Marlon want with our future solution? Next up. Or what would Jacques, right? Ray, next up. Cool. So we just like that one because it was fun, it was different. You kind of, jumped out of the cookie cutter process a little bit, and we liked how you communicated and stuck to a fun theme.
Cool. So the final project that we have is to showcase today is Design at Columbia CU Shuttle redesign. This is by Tamana, Marieke, and John, and I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. So Perrin, feel free to hop in wherever, but we have some great key takeaways here. The presentation is really nice, but as I said before, in last week, imposter syndrome is a thing, and please do not feel intimidated by the ones that we show. But just looking at the content, it's really great. These are some great questionnaires and kind of how that translates into a takeaway, how that's reflected in their research, in their project. Same with video interviews, same with expert interviews, which is great. And here, Perrin, I'm going to let you take over at this point.
Also love these personas. I like the visual. I don't know if your team drew those visuals or you stole them from somewhere else or took them from somewhere else. 100% feel free to look on the internet for fun illustrations that capture the vibe of personas. You've got the about the person, the bio, you got the goals, motivations, and frustrations. So I just really like kind of the holistic thinking around your personas. We can click through these. Next up was the journey map around how to take the shuttle. I really liked this journey map as like an initial journey map to look at what is the functional journey here. You could see that you guys in-depth thought about, cool, learning about the shuttle. What are the different ways that you can learn about it? Preparing to take the shuttle and all of the different functional steps in that journey. And it's really good to understand, cool, what is each piece of this journey going to look like? What are all of the possible scenarios for someone to use the shuttle and all the different scenarios for people to experience the shuttle. Next up. And what really made this for me was after they looked at the functional journey, they incorporated it into the emotional journey. So here you can see satisfied and frustrated on their emotional scale across discovery, preparation, onboarding, and offboarding. And you've got the key quotes, the key takeaways, and those turned into opportunities. So I thought it was really clean, kind of the transition from actually, how does the shuttle bus work? Let's figure that out first as a journey, to then figuring out how to incorporate both the functional and emotional parts of the journey in one. It's a good job. Also, stakeholder map, nice visuals again, nice visual style. Suggestion for anyone that wants to make a clean presentation, choose like one key color and don't use any other colors besides that. It always works for helping you clean it up. And here you can see they've thought about everything about like electronic buses and 4G terminals and local officials. So they're really thinking about both the core, direct, and indirect stakeholders. Next up. Actually, can you exit this and reload? There should be one quick slide on personas versus archetypes. There it is.
Oh, that's the wrong button, sorry. Oh.
All the buttons.
Okay,
I think this is from Yaving.
here we go.
Kind of presentation. This was I really love the graphics here too. This was their portion of their submission on personas. Next up. And something that I caught was, it says Columbia student that doesn't like to change. There should be a graphic, but it doesn't look like it's copied over, possibly. But third or fourth year do not love the system, but they got used to working with it, are worried about learning about the new system, have a YouTube channel to answer potential questions and give students a run through. I guess what I'm just trying to say here is that this is less of a persona and more of an archetype, because in personas you saw an example key person and you got their story, you got their motivations, frustrations, goals. And this is more of an archetype of, cool, we've got Columbia students that don't like change. Next up. Columbia students that value it being intuitive. So I think that, these are phenomenal archetypes because you're really understanding the different behavioral types of Columbia students. So go you for going to that level of kind of looking at the behavioral parts, but just be aware personas are like example people that you can look to design around and empathize with further, versus archetypes or more behavioral captures. What are the habits of a larger population?
Yeah, Perrin, I think the author's telling us that they were intended as archetypes, so they got it. But I'm glad you clarified for me because I wasn't quite sure the difference. These are good.
Yeah, and no problem, like totally understandable. When I first got into this, archetypes, personas, who the hell knows what those are? So I just wanted to help clarify because we saw both your words kind of being used in different scenarios. And we just want to say, we love work in progress as well. We showed you a lot of really polished slides today just to showcase some of the work being done in the community. But 100%, if you're work in progress, if you haven't reached that far in the stage yet, if you weren't able to do a journey map, don't worry too much. Week 2 was the hardest and had the most deliverables most likely for your project. And so don't feel guilty if you're behind. Feel free to submit whatever you got. Don't worry about a journey map if you haven't done it. Just throw together an affinity diagram and get some insights so that you can move forward. And yeah, we just want to say keep slaying it and submit us whatever you got. And we're always here for you. If you get behind in the process one week and still want feedback, feel free to hop on the feedback channel or DM any of us. We're always happy to share the feedback. And if you haven't gotten feedback on week 1 yet, that should be returned to you today. I'm not sure if we hit return on everyone's feedback yet.
Right, yeah, and we also just want to recognize that this week has been really difficult for a lot of people. America and the world are responding to violent acts of racial injustice. And if that means that you haven't been able to focus on or work on or communicate with your team or anything to do with your project, that is really okay. We want you to take as much space as you need. And we also want to provide a space at Design at Columbia to kind of think about and process and fight what is going on in the world. We thought it might be helpful to share some resources that at least we as a team have benefited from sharing, and just contribute to kind of the anti-racism resources that are out there. This was taken from a social media post, but yeah, we found it really beneficial. It's or recommendations of anti-racist literature, whether you're someone who kind of feels ignorant and a beginner and doesn't really understand what's going on. There's like a starter kit versus those who have a bit more knowledge and just kind of want to deepen that. We've got recommendations of biographies, personal narratives. There's also Black LGBTQ plus literature, and there's topic-specific literature, Black feminist literature. We really encourage you to come back to these slides and educate yourself, start discussing, start debating. As well as that, we want to recognize that as designers, we have so much impact. We're designing for our users, and it's important to think about who those users are. Here are just 3 articles that we've got linked. When we share out the slides, you can click on the links. that kind of start thinking about designing for racial inclusion and diversity. And we really want to encourage you to continue thinking about that as part of your projects right now and for the rest of your career as designers. As well as that, we want to make everyone feel welcome to share anti-racism resources, protests, funds, events, anything that you come across that could be helpful, and share it in the resources channel. And finally, we want to just say, if you feel like changing your project now and doing something that targets anti-racism, or you just don't want to do the current project you're on and feel inspired to do something else, that is completely okay. We are here to support you in that change and support you in any way that you need us to. As well as that, we just want to mention we have, as part of session 2 for Design at Columbia this summer, we are going to have a design challenge, and one of those prompts has already been decided to be designing for inequality. So if you wanted to work on that as your project next session, then we will have a lot of structures in place for you to do that. But yeah, we want to emphasize that we are here as a resource and a support system for you in whatever capacity you need us to be. And without further ado, we're going to move on to phase 3, sketching. What are we doing this week? So, sketching in a nutshell. So in the defining phase, you are synthesizing your research, and now you're going to take that focus and generate a broad range of ideas. So from these ideas, we're going to go as broad as possible. We want to narrow down to a few solutions that are important to your user and feasible. So you've synthesized the research, now what? We're going to talk about deliverables. It says 5 to 6 slides, which looks like a lot compared to other weeks. That's only because it's going to take up space, so you need slides. And also, this week's deliverables should be done pretty quickly and easily compared to other weeks, especially last week. Crazy Eights takes 8 minutes, I'm pretty sure, or 10 minutes. It's really fast, so don't worry. Please don't feel overwhelmed looking at this. So we have Crazy Eights. We'll explain that to you in a workshop later. Today we'll have solution sketches for 3 ideas, which will also be explained, portfolio sketches, which Perrin will cover, and then a link to your homepage of your portfolio with your name, which is optional, but we encourage you to do that. And then we also wanted to talk about more faculty advisors that we have on board for Design at Columbia. And Lydia, I'm actually going to let you.
Yeah, great. Just let's run through. Yeah, Kristen Meyer, she's a professor of mechanical engineering. She's also doing a design challenge. She does medical and mechanical, so she is awesome at that stuff. She's also the director of mechanical engineering undergraduate education and experience, which includes all this portfolio building stuff. She is amazing at that. She's also one of the few, I could talk about her research forever. Okay, Jin Kuwata is faculty at Columbia's Teachers College, world-renowned institute that teaches teachers how to teach. I said that right. Okay, and he actually focuses on how to design education. So if you are building something that teaches learning or teaches programming or teaches something else, he is an expert in using the design process to help with that. Next, Umbreen Body is actually a director of, within Barnard, the Athena Center for Leadership Studies, which has a lot to do with design. So she was director of KQED. That's the public television radio station where I'm from in Berkeley. Lots of, also a lot of journalism stuff. She was the civil rights litigation program director, absolutely fantastic at all stages of design and innovation. And last we have Ivy Schultz, who you'll be meeting. She teaches entrepreneurship at Columbia. She also leads many design challenges. She also has money to give out to young entrepreneurial teams. She is someone to get to know. She'll be coming by at some point. She is really good at this sort of customer and needs discovery, creating a pitch, all this early stage stuff to get the idea right, just basically where design is taking you. Yeah. And right, so if I looked over your assignment 1, I was like, I sort of suggested some next steps or way to get more feedback. But if you're at a stage where you feel like, okay, I've thought through this idea, I could make a short presentation basically of the stuff in your assignments 1 or 2, please direct message me on Slack and we will think through who a good faculty advisor would be from you. You could have started your deck or not. It always be great to just slap a couple things together so I have some idea what you're doing. But please, like don't be shy. I love meeting with people. I'm having Peter, one of the other students, had me sign up on his Calendly. I'm like, I should do that. That was a good idea. So I'm just gonna have more open office hours. And I really wanna talk at any point, no matter where you are, I wanna help. You have no slides. That's great, I know. We need to get you some slides. So, yeah.
Sweet. And then is Ebing on this call?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, hello. We'd like to introduce ADI as well, but I'm not going to say anything about it.
All right. Hi, I'm a resident junior studying CS and Cs, and Eileen and I are organizing the ADI collab with Design Columbia this summer. So ADI is Application Development Initiative, and we are an undergrad student group. We basically connect people who are interested in CS, no matter you're a CS major or not. And then this summer, we're trying to provide some technical help to the best of our abilities and also direct you to resources if you want to learn about anything. So Eileen, you want to talk more about our program?
Hi everyone, my name is Eileen and I'm also a member of ADI. I'm also a rising junior and I'm studying CS, and we're very excited to be working with Design at Columbia this summer to support everyone. As of right now, the things that we're working on to provide support is we're making a new Slack channel called ADI-help. And on this channel, you can post any questions that you have regarding more product-focused questions, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So basically, I will help answer any questions and direct you to resources that you may use. We're also organizing a lot of workshops, such as CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. And these are all important because they'll be handy if you want to create a website, basically something to showcase your work and your design. So we'll be there to help out with that. Also, there's going to be plenty of office hours, so ADI members will be there available to, once again, answer any questions, simply hang out, or just talk more about CS at Columbia if you're new to it, and really anything. So yeah, we're very excited. And one more thing is we're trying to form a hackathon. I don't know if people have been involved in hackathons, but basically it's kind of an opportunity where students can come and make their projects and just kind of meet other tech enthusiasts. So we're in the process of making a hackathon for Design at Columbia community. So we'll let you know when we have more updates on that.
Sweet, thank you both.
Thank you.
Please make sure to join ADI Help. It's another Slack channel. If you need any kind of technical help, for example, any of these on the screen, or you want to get to know about, anyone in ADI or the Hackathon initiative. Lastly, please make sure to submit your deliverables by next Friday, 8 a.m. EST. This is the correct link here in the deck. Sorry, it was incorrect last week. If you can't make it that deadline, that's also okay. We are going to have workshops. We're running a little bit late, but first we're going to have Lydia's micro workshop, which is about design scope and finding your minimum viable product.
All right, I'm up. I gotta share my screen.
Yeah, I need to stop doing that.
All right. Am I projecting, Laura?
You are. Parent time.
Oh, yes. Okay. Design scope. Finding your MVP. MVP stands for minimum viable product. It's the minimum thing that you could release that you think would solve users' problems. So I pulled from a website, what did Facebook and Airbnb originally look like? They had different names. It was the Facebook because they didn't want to pay for a URL that was facebook.com. And Airbnb was literally called bed and breakfast. Like, ugh, this is too long. The graphic design is absolutely terrible on each one. You can tell, it actually has Mark Zuckerberg's face in the original logo. I remember this, you guys. I was there. This is true. Okay, all it was a way to list like random stuff about you. Like, you know, there was no feed. There was no any of this. You could write on people's wall, but that's it. It was so small. This was the minimum thing you would do. Just connect people online. Okay, and Airbnb was like, search for a city. Look at these really crappy like check-in, check-out dates. Like this calendar was all really plug and play, but it was the minimum you could do to find a hotel somewhere. They knew that's what their users had trouble with. So why do we focus on MVPs in design? It's really about maximum learning for the least effort in programming and design. This is actually a very new concept. Given that humanity has been starting companies for like 5,000 years, this idea was really only coined in 2001. This idea might be younger than some of you out there. Woohoo! But it was only popularized in 2011 with an amazing book that I've read many times called The Lean Startup that really convinced me. I drank the Kool-Aid on this, but anyway, how the author Eric Ries defines the minimum viable product is a version of the product or service or website. It doesn't have to be a product, anything you're making, which allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning about customers or just learning about people with the least effort. It really is maximum learning, least effort. So let me tell you, I've taught many classes. I have been in many projects. I have supervised many projects. Absolutely, there's one biggest mistake made by designers, and I'll show you how it unfolds. They start with a prompt, like, how might we help people build social connections? Look how big and vague this is. This is how we started. And they'll come up with a solution like, oh, a social network with billions of users, daily updates, images, photos, prioritization algorithms to show what's relevant. It's not that this is so much a bad idea, and there is something very appealing about it. I argue this sounds grand and important, and if you wanted to convince investors, this sounds like, oh yeah, billions of people. But this is the mistake. This is the trap people get into when thinking about these big, broad solutions, is that there's no MVP that you can test on 5 users. Really think about one person's problem that works with 5 people. Think really small. That is the mistake people make. And I'm going to try to convince you that this is what you should do. You want to start with 1 user and 1 problem. And if that solution is genuinely good, they will tell their friends and it will spread virally. This is how you get a billion users, is by starting with 1 person who gives it to 3 people, who each give it to 3 people until you've got everyone on the planet. This is how pyramid schemes work. This is how businesses travel. This is how rumors travel. It's called Ziff distribution. Like, it works. This is like a literal law of nature. Okay, but you really have to remember, this is a real person, and you really have to think about not just the technology, not just your idea, but really flip it around and think about that person who's struggling with something and that you are helping. Because if you really fix that one person, it's that person that's going to tell their friends. You also want to like be nice to them and like be friendly and make sure that they feel comfortable giving you honest feedback. Okay? So this is why we talked about personas and archetypes. They help you focus on that one person and one problem, and particularly what their frustrations are. And I don't. And many people, especially who come with a startup idea, have a hard time backing up and really remembering what their mission is, what their tiny mission is, the one person, one problem thing. But we're going to spend time today remembering what that is. That's going to be the micro workshop. And the personas and archetypes will help. So how do we fix this mistake? First, you want to drill down from your research to a narrow, user-centered prompt. How might we help incoming CU students like Josh, someone that I met, someone that I know, someone I can empathize with, and I have quotes from, find clubs remotely? You know, that's one aspect of making friends at a school. You also need some sort of insight, probably from talking about him, probably in his quote. Like, finding a club is as much about the activity as it is about the people. So a good solution doesn't involve just listing out, okay, the drama club, the, you know, the dragon dance club, the chess club, the design club. It's not about that. It's about whether the people in it are douchey or not, kind of, or your kind of people. Maybe you like douchey people. It's a value judgment, whatever. Okay. And then what kind of minimum viable product can we do? I really recommend an MVP with no code whatsoever. So one for this could be maybe organize a sort of speed dating event with 5 clubs and 5 incoming students over Zoom, and try to learn whether this is successful at matching students in clubs. Simple. You could do it in an afternoon. You don't have to spend a month learning HTML and writing code and debugging the backend to find out if this type of solution would solve the problem. And probably it won't. The first 10 ideas I come up with are usually terrible, and I have to learn through iteration. Okay? And so why is this a good MVP? Because you can test it on 5 people, and if it solves their problem, they will tell their friends. And if it doesn't, it will give you insights about what to try next. And it's manageable and it's fun, even though it doesn't sound grand and it doesn't make you feel like a elite hacker or any of that stuff. It is the real way to solve problems. Okay. Let me tell you a story. This is a true story. This is Nadia. She's 11. She lives in Houston. This is not a persona or archetype. It's a real person. Okay. She has a problem. She's struggling with fractions at school. Teacher gives her these homework assignments and she just doesn't have a fucking clue. I don't know if you remember fractions, but I remember they're a big pain in the ass. Okay. Her uncle wanted to help, but he lives in New York and she's in Houston. So he's like, well, you know, what if I just think through this? These textbooks are so formal. What if I made it informal and I think through it and I just make it approachable? And he happens to upload them to YouTube so Nadia can see them. Okay. And he tried many ways, you know, and so he shows her this video. Still not getting it. So he goes back to her and says, "That's okay. Maybe some more pictures. Maybe slow it down even more. Yeah, okay. Maybe not. Maybe she just needs to hear it again, even clearer. Okay, even more pictures. This is good. Oh, doing a little bit better. Let's follow that up again. Even more pictures. It's actually the pictures that are helping. Now she's getting it. A slow down process. It really is about learning a good process, not just finding the answers. Okay, these videos help Nadia, and she aces the test. But in addition, because Nadia was so good at it, students asked her, "Hey, you hated this last week. Why are you good at it now?" And she told them about these videos. Her classes did it. Those people told people, and this legitimately, other people started creating videos for other topics, not just fractions. But it turns out, like, if you draw pictures and you slow it down and you make learning less formal and more just about, you know, how do you think through it, it helps a lot of people on a lot of topics. This legitimately became Khan Academy, which today their mission statement is every student, every classroom, real results. This is a hugely inspiring and broad vision, but they didn't start there. This is very general. And I know that this is how the world presents itself, is going after these big, grand things, conquer the world. None of them start there. At least none of the startups do. They all start with a person and a problem, and they spread through friends virally. Okay? Started with Nadia and fractions. If you nail that, you can get the right. So I know this sounds simple, but this is the main thing people really trip up on when they do their own design project or startup or company or project or service or even good thing, you know, like trying to do an NGO. This is, so what goes wrong? I'll tell you, because so many people out there in the world are promising to solve grand challenges. No new taxes. This is, Google said that they tried to solve death. I don't even know what that means, to solve death. Cure all diseases in our children's lifetime. Not just two, not just cancer, all of them, all right? And, the canonical, beauty pageant winner, world peace. Like, people talking about curing world peace who still bicker with their parents and siblings every day. I'm like, why would I send you to Israel and Palestine if you don't even talk to your siblings? Anyway, so whereas these all sound great and they get people excited and may even get people to donate money, they aren't actionable. They don't give you a pathway to actually start this. In order to start curing all diseases, you have to start with one disease that you're going to cure. You're going to start with world peace. You got to start with one war at a time, right? One disagreement at a time. Okay, so these specific and narrow goals are actionable, and you can start today with a minimum viable product, like just Nadia and her fractions, and then you can generalize later once you know that it works. Right? So this is like the bottom-up approach. You start with the people and narrow goals, and you build up your way to an empire. I'll just show you a ton more examples of this. The companies you know today, so Amazon, their general domain is online shopping. They have conquered this market for good or bad. But they started with selling books to people in rural areas where there didn't exist bookstores. Bookstores used to exist. Okay? These are people that had a need. And then they generalized from clothes and food and produce and like everything else in the world. Okay? Facebook is now social networking, but it was really just Harvard students looking each other up, their classes, their relationship status. It was so simple. It had nothing to do with ruining democracy. Okay? And they reached out, like, because people at Harvard told their friend, I was at MIT right down the street. They're like, Ivy League. Everyone, now that's in the Ivy League, everybody wants it. All US colleges now, everybody, pretty much everybody. Anyway, okay. So Gmail, now it's like the email. Like I think it kind of won the email market. But the specific need they started with was people using Hotmail, which was the dominant thing at the time, were missing messages because it didn't reload while you were in the application. And they hated missing messages. So if they figured out how to get this stuff to update in real time, then they could generalize to chat, to Google Drive, to Google Docs, to all these absolutely essential tools for productivity. But it started with, how do I get my emails to update faster? One that you may have seen within your lifetime, so Canva, is now in the domain of graphic design for novices. You want to make a Facebook post? Great. Here's some fonts, some templates, some colors. So it makes it really easy for someone who knows nothing to make something pretty, very, very, very pretty. And now it's $1 billion company, a unicorn in tech speak. But they started with a very modest goal, which is having yearbook teams needed easy templates and ways to share files to high school yearbook teams. And that's what they made, a tool for their high school yearbook team in Australia, and they sold it to other yearbook teams. And once they nailed that, they could make posters and flyers because, you can, because there's nothing special about yearbooks. They're just templates, like templates for everything. But they nailed that market first, because you're not going to go head to head with Adobe like day one. This is not going to happen. They're going to copy your company. You need this foothold and kill you. It's like blast you out of the water. So you need to start somewhere. Okay, so if you start with one user and one problem, that will help. Those people will help you grow your product. Okay, so to have this MVP, you want to start with one user and one problem. And she's gonna, like, at first she's not gonna get it. She's not gonna get it. She's not gonna get it. And finally, she will start to get it. And that's great. You want those iterations. Okay? If the solution works for them, they will tell their friends. That is all you need. You need to impress one person. Okay, so here's a workshop. You'll have about 5 minutes to really think about, and we're gonna do little breakout groups. What's your user and their problem? And maybe start thinking about some MVP insights for them. So here's the questions that I want you to be able to ask. Who? What's their name, age, and location? I know you did the personas and archetypes, but those aren't real things. So think back to some of the people that you interviewed early on and think about what are they struggling with. Forget for a minute what you're trying to give them. Really just think from their perspective. What's a quote that indicates that? If any of these you don't have, that's fine. Leave a question mark, fill it in later. You know, what's the competitor? We did like what are they currently using? And then is there an insight or something you've read or heard or learned that you could think you could base a solution on? Okay. So write these things down, and then in 5 minutes we'll come back. Write them down in the chat if you feel comfortable with me reading them and talking about them. Okay? So I'm going to put you into breakout rooms for 5 minutes. Where did Zoom go?
Also, for everyone who maybe just isn't in the mood for breakout room, you can say no. just saying if that helps you helps you feel more comfortable.
And even if you are not at the stage yet, you can always just listen to other people's stuff. No one will be like, you didn't do enough. Okay, but you can always just hang out here with us. Okay, I'm creating them now, and they are open. I'll send a 2-minute warning. Okay. I sent a message with that said what they're meant to do. I forgot they couldn't see this screen anymore. Ugh.
Zoom should think about adding that feature.
Zoom should think about not sucking. How am I doing on time? Do you know?
It's almost 10:02, so we're running about 20 minutes late right now.
I feel like I started at like 1:30 at the latest.
Yeah, no, it was the first 30 minutes that made us run late. We should start calling them back pretty quickly because I'm keen to get Harry on and give him as much time as possible.
And I can speed through mine if needed. We'll have a second workshop on more career stuff, so
yeah,
I can speak more to it.
I just hurried. I gave him the 2-minute warning, so.
Nice.
Yeah, if I had infinite time when I edited the videos, I'd edit all this time out. Oh well.
People that just speed through it. It's not that difficult.
All right. Close the group. It's going to take a minute to bring everyone in. I will screen share. Oh, maybe not. All right. How do I see the chat? Hey, if anyone's back yet, we'd love you to, if you actually want to say any of your thoughts about who it was, and even just like who it is and what problem they're struggling with, that would be amazing. I can't actually see raised hands. Laura, can you see that? Oh, we've got one. Laura, I also can't hear you. You're muted. Are people back yet?
Yes, they're back, and I can see if anyone raises
Okay,
their hand.
awesome. Reading one out. This is awesome. Avi Eller lives in Minnesota, finding training partners when not at school. Not quite sure what kind of training.
I think this is sports training. Like you're an athlete.
Yeah, any particular sport that this person wanted to train for? Soccer, great. And do you know what level they're at? Or like a beginner, or are they in the MLS? D1 college, that sounds impressive. I don't even know what that is. Okay, so these aren't like, let me get in shape kind of people. These are like, I need to keep up my skills. Awesome, that tells me even more. I can't find people who want to train. Yeah, that's definitely a problem, but it can't just be anyone. It's got to be someone good enough. So insight, text messages are personal and only reach people in your network. What if we broaden this network? Interesting. I like that. I like that as an insight. Hopefully you got that from somebody saying that. And I get it. I'm like right now that the competitor is text messaging people. So that's cool. There is something I like about the personal nature of a text message. Someone, took some time to do that. So kind of cool to think about how we could combine that, not just like an email blast to anyone who's ever bought a soccer ball in life. Great, another one. We have, a friend's parents, 30 to 40, living in Arkansas. Love that. I love when people design for people like me. I'm 30 to 40. And the problem is finding the right tax filing software. Word, I am doing this right now. There's so many, they all look the same. They all look fine. My dad uses one. I can't figure it out. I have that frustration. Taxes are already too confusing, so the software should be easy to use and find. Absolutely. Okay, I am loving these. We got to keep going. I just want to remind everyone, whatever stage you're in, please remember, like, to have a minimum viable product, you need a user with a problem. And it doesn't have to be technical, because you're just focusing on learning about this person. Really focus on starting with one user and their problem. And if it works, your job is done, because they will tell their friends. Awesome. I will hand it back to Laura.
Sweet. We are going to actually hand over to Harry West, who we introduced last week. Hello, Harry, I can see you there. And he's going to be leading today's first workshop, which is Ideation and Sketching. And just to kind of plug Harry, how cool Harry is, he was the former CEO of Frog, which is an international design and innovation consulting company, and he's currently the principal at Invisible Design. But I'll hand it over to Harry. Oh, you're currently muted, Harry.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Thank you. So, Laura, before you disappear, we're running a tiny bit behind schedule. I'd say half an hour behind schedule. So I'm going to try to abbreviate this, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, and I'm going to keep this super simple. I'm inspired by Salman Khan and the work he did creating Khan Academy. He didn't let the quality of his drawing get in the way of the education of his niece. He was very focused on the outcome he needed. So we're going to keep things super simple and focus on the outcome. I also want to support Lydia's point about pick a user, any user, pick one person, because it's a mathematical truism that even though if your idea works for one person, it may or may not work for 1 billion people. It is definitely true that if there's no one person that your idea works for, there's no way it can work for 1 billion people. So get it to work for one person first, okay? And today, that one person might be you. So I'm going to see if I can find a presentation and just kind of kick the discussion off. Give me a second as I screen share. Is that working?
Yep, that's working.
Okay, good. And I would love okay. So sorry. Here we go. So we want to talk about creation and ideation and sketching. So what I'd like you to do is, I hope that everybody has a piece of paper in front of you and a pen. And I'm going to simplify Lydia's list. I'd like you to write down the following words. Who? Put a number 1 by that. Okay, that's the person. Insight. Put a number 2 by that. That is the insight you've gained from talking to that person. How might we? And put the number 3 by that. That is the opportunity that you think you have to serve that person. And then 4, idea. So what we want to do is go all the way from a person, an insight into that person, a challenge, a how might we statement, to an idea. And I'm going to present a super simple model. It's not around brainstorming, although you can brainstorm. It's sort of agnostic of many of the techniques that are out there. But the first step is you think about your problem. You think about your how might we statement, and you sketch on a piece of paper an idea. And then you sketch another idea. And then you sketch another idea. Do at least 2 or 3. And the challenge, the process you're using there is a how. How might I do this? Now, engage other parts of your brain. So you've sketched some different ideas, and I'm showing this is from a design class that I teach. And you can see the kind of level of sketch that we're talking about. They're super, super basic, okay? It's just basically an aid memoir to you, to remind you of what it is that you're thinking of. And now start to critique your ideas, okay? Look at each of those ideas and ask yourself the question, does it solve the problem? Does it address the insight? Can I imagine the person, the who, the persona that I'm designing for, can I imagine them using this? And the critique process is not just a selection process, it's also a creative process, because you're looking at an idea and you are assessing it, evaluating it based on what you have learned. And then you may choose or you may modify that idea. So you critique. And the process that we use for critiquing is called, You look at that idea and you apply your critical thinking skills and go, does this make sense? Okay. And then you do it again. You have an idea and now iterate on that, explore different variations on it, and then critique, and then explore, and then critique. And eventually, with practice, you can simultaneously create and critique. And that's what designers do. They're creating and they're critiquing. And the reason why we sketch, we either sketch well or we sketch poorly. The reason why we sketch is it's difficult to critique something until it's there, until you can see it. So we cycle between creating and sketching, and then critiquing and modifying, until eventually we get to a great idea. And initially what we're doing is we're doing this just amongst ourselves. Okay, it might be just me alone in my room, creating and critiquing by myself. Or I might be doing this with my team. And then eventually I want to do this with my consumer, with the person I'm designing for. And I think in the wonderful example that Lydia shared, what we saw was Salman Khan was creating and his niece was critiquing. She wasn't saying, Salman, you didn't do a good job here, you did a bad job there. He was learning from her what was working and what was not working. Okay? That's what we want to do today. So, can we go to breakout rooms, Laura? Is that allowed?
Yes. How
Okay.
many people per room?
So,
Like 5 or 6? The same?
So let's start off with with a breakout room of 1. So we don't actually have to do any mechanics for that. I think everybody can just stop looking at the screen, okay, and just look down at a piece of paper. Okay, and on that piece of paper, so far, you've got 1, who, 2, insight, 3, how might we, and 4, idea, okay? Now, underneath that, draw a line, and underneath that, say, for 2 minutes, just think. 2 minutes is not a long time, but it's a skill that designers acquire, is the ability to focus an idea for a long period of time. And my experience has been that actually it's quite difficult for people to be silent and think, even for 1 minute. So we're going to test you a little bit and ask you to do it for 2 minutes. And when you get really good, you can do it for 8 hours. But we're not going to push that, okay? Because we got some time constraints. So we're just going to do it for 2 minutes. Okay, so I just want you to look at the original list of 4 and just think about it for 2 minutes. And then I want you to take 2 minutes and sketch out a solution on a piece of paper. And then I want you to take another 2 minutes and just look at that solution and ask yourself, does it do what I'm asking it to do? Does it solve my how might we problem? Is it using my insight? Can I imagine the persona using this? Okay, just ask yourself that question for 2 minutes. And then finally, for 1 minute, just make a small modification to your idea that makes it better. Okay, so that's 7 minutes and it's 2:05. So at 2:12, we can reconvene. But for the next 7 minutes, just focus individually on what it is you're trying to do. Okay? We're good? We're good. Thank you.
Harry, would you mind putting in the chat kind of the steps that we're meant to be going through right now, or just say what the next step is?
Yeah. I'll do that.
That is 7 minutes up.
Okay. Now, how was that?
That was the hardest 7 minutes of my life, Harry. Not gonna lie.
That's really difficult. I felt like I was rushing.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I felt like I had way too much time, given that I had no ideas.
I think we have the opposite problem. I had too many ideas to sketch.
You know, it's an interesting phenomenon, I think, that the more you know about something, the more expertise you have in a field, the more time you can spend on it. Whereas when you're first approaching a new field, it's difficult to get deep enough to take the time. So I don't know how to do this, but I'm wondering if somebody would be willing to share a sketch and just talk through the thought process. Laura, how do we make this happen? Do they volunteer in chat?
Yeah, if you could use the raise hand function, if you don't know how to do that, put it in the chat that you don't know how to do that, or I'll just explain it. If I know how to do that. I think you click on participants and then click raise hand.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So please raise your hand if you'd like to share your sketches or your process. If it's just like a scrappy piece of paper, which you can like hold up to the screen and talk to us about it, like that would be great.
Well, be brave. I'm looking for a raised hand here. So nobody is raising their hand. This is, people are so shy. So Laura, could you lead the way?
I could share mine. I actually just took, because I'm not doing a project for design at Columbia, because running it is it takes a lot of time. So I actually just took the insights from, or the Who problem insight competitor from Lacey, who posted earlier about trying to find soccer partners who are D1 college level. Probably not the best person to design for this, actually, because I don't play soccer and never have.
With an accent like that?
I know, I just don't play soccer, football. And I also am not very well versed with the American college system, but I gave it a go. I guess, well, the first thing I can show you is my sketch. So round one of sketches. I don't know if that's easy to see. I'm gonna turn a light on.
Yep.
That's easier. So I thought, okay, I forgot that it was just for soccer and I was thinking about loads of sports, but I put loads of sports here to begin with. And then I was like, okay, maybe you'll want to train soccer, maybe you want to train basketball, whatever. And then the next screen would be like showing you a map of kind of other athletes who train that sport in your area and like how far away they were from you, with like little profiles. And then somehow you would end up on a chat screen, a bit like text messaging, except it was within the app and it kind of opened up who you were allowed to text to. And then
it's like Tinder for soccer.
Yeah, a bit like that. And then I went to a crit and I was like, hang on a minute, if you're playing soccer, it's not useful just to train with one other person, you need a team. So instead I changed it to team finding for different sports. And then the next stage would be a recruitment screen. So instead of showing a map, it would show a list of everyone and how far away they were from you. And you could kind of tick like, yes, I want to try and recruit this person to train with me. And then the next screen would be a when to meet, kind of let's figure out when we're all available and can train together. And then I modified that because I realized that with the recruitment kind of stage, there might be opportunities to discriminate and kind of have bias against people depending on their skill level or like I don't know what school they go for, things like that. So I was like, maybe you automatically send invites based on like a radius to everyone in your area, and from there you go to the when to meet. And it's like, okay, if you are eligible and you are in this area, then we can talk about training together. So yeah, that was my process in 7 minutes.
Have another volunteer whenever you're ready.
Well, let me just comment on Laura's presentation whilst it's fresh in my mind. So a couple of observations there. One is, it was a very simple sketch, but Laura could talk eloquently and at length about the sketch, because the sketch was just an aid for Laura to remember everything that was going on in her mind as she was thinking about it. So the sketch didn't capture everything, but it was enough to remind her of her thought process. Secondly, the first sketch didn't work, and there were a bunch of obvious errors in the first sketch, such as you don't play soccer alone. Okay, even Laura knew that. But sometimes, no matter how well you know something, it's only when you write it down that you realize it's wrong. So you got to write it down, or else you could continue with that misconception or that mistake for a long time. So you write it down, then once you've written it down, it becomes obvious to you, this is not a good idea, and then I can modify it to make it better. So sketching and prototyping is not just a way to document your thoughts. It's a way also for you to create new ideas, to change your thoughts. So that's sort of very, very simple observation on a very simple idea. And it was interesting that even though that was not Laura's project, there was enough information in the documents that, I can't remember her name, had shared with you for you to be able to dive in. So that was great. Okay, next person, Lydia. Who's on?
Carlo.
Okay.
Say hi. There he is. Oh, you're muted though. There he is.
We good?
Yep.
Awesome. So let's see if I have my iPad here. Because I'm a nerd. Oh boy, hold on. Let me turn off my thing.
I can't see you.
Yeah, well, I have to turn on my background. Okay.
Okay.
So you can see what I have here is like tickets to a destination, passport, I think, a pamphlet to a hotel, and like very basic concept of like a tool to inspect, kind of like maybe an Adobe program or any sort of design program, this inspector, and a satchel to like keep things that are important to you. But it's a very vague term, and the idea that I'm trying to explore is going deeper into vocabulary once you're in a really confusing place where you really never know where to look next. So my first idea was to maybe highlight or use the internet to go deeper into like a particular word that you find interesting. But part of the problem that I thought of with this is that like Google will just spit at anything at you, especially things that are like want to make money off of your Google search. So I thought maybe that isn't as useful to the user. So for the next sketch, I thought, well, you know, there's so much video content in the world, and a lot of it is captioned. So what if maybe there's some way to really get the voice of the native speaker in the video with the relevant content, maybe like a hotel promo, and let them capture that timestamp so they can always bring up that video and the context of the vocabulary, so that they're learning the vocabulary in the context, which is kind of like the idea that I wanted in the beginning. So that was like the second sketch. If you could make out what it means, like from all these stencils. So you have the pamphlet here, you kind of click on or something, and there's the video. And then you can save those.
Okay, so vocabulary in context.
Yes.
Is the key idea,
Yes.
I think. Is that right?
Yes.
And did you write that on your sketch? I couldn't see.
Yeah, I have here related vocab and deeper into a term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I like about what Carl has shown is that it's a very simple sketch, but actually a lot of the content is not in the diagram, but it's in the annotations to the diagram. Because for many of us, we can convey ideas better, more succinctly, and more clearly in writing than we can through a sketch. And that's okay. We can mix words and pictures. And as you are sketching, think carefully about what the right balance should be. Not only for other people, but also for yourself. Because sometimes it's just quicker and easier to write things down. And that's a verbal sketch, and that's also good. This has been great. Laura, can I take another like 5-10 minutes?
Yeah,
oh,
go for it.
We're good? We're good? Okay, so what we'd like to do now is just move on to a second exercise based on the first one. Super, super simple. Okay, and it is in 4 steps. First, well, we're going to do this in team rooms, okay? So we're going to go to breakout rooms. And how many people do we have in each breakout room?
About 4 usually.
Okay, and my understanding is the breakout rooms are not teams. They're just random people.
Yeah, although since we already did breakouts, it would default to the people they already know from the past breakout, which is always nice.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we'll go with that. So, but I'm not going to assume that people in the breakout rooms are on the same project. Okay?
Oh yeah, no, they're not.
Okay, so in your breakout room, pick one person immediately. And that person, just by default, is going to be the person who shows up on the top left-hand corner. Sorry, top right-hand corner of your screen. Okay, that's the person you're going to go with. Okay, that's the first person to talk. Their job is to tell the other 2 or 3 people in the breakout room 3 things: who, the insight, and the how might we. Okay, they tell them those 3 things, that's all. And then they show the sketch, okay, or the annotated sketch. They show that piece of paper on their screen to the other 3. And then what we want is, in turn, for the other 3 to explain back to the first person what they think they're seeing. Okay? So you're going to have your sketches interpreted, guided a little bit by that knowledge of the who, the insight, and the how might we statement. But that's all. And we'll see if other people understand what you're trying to communicate to yourself. Okay? Do that for like a minute or 2. Then flip the tables, and we'll say, and the person who actually did the sketch will explain back to everybody, well, this is what I meant to communicate. Okay? And then I would like to flip the table again and to have the people who were reviewing the sketch the first time to now critique whether or not that idea is doing what the how might we, the insight, and the who suggest it should be doing. Okay? The reason we want to do that is because sometimes the most valuable ideas come out of misunderstandings. And we want to use our sketches as a way to create misunderstandings with other team members. Because perhaps in their misunderstanding, the person will learn of another idea or another interpretation that could be useful to them. Okay? So let me just run that by one more time. So the person who shows up in the top right-hand corner of the screen, on my screen, that's Perrin. They explain who, insight, how might we. Okay? Then they show their piece of paper to the screen. Okay, and everybody else explains back what they think that person has sketched. And then the person who did the sketch explains back to them, well, actually, this is what I meant to say. And then everybody else piles on and now critiques the idea, okay? And I think we can do the whole thing in, let's say 7 minutes, okay? So it's the same as last time, and then we'll close, okay?
Great. I'm opening up the rooms now, and you'll get a 2-minute and 1-minute warning.
Supposed to say a specific person, or am I supposed to like?
No, you can just say the general.
Okay, then I'll just say like people like 34 people who filed taxes. Let's just say that. That's a little broad, but like, we could do it like that, I guess. Like 30 to 40 like people who file taxes for a lot of times, I guess. The insight is that people like there are so many tax filing like software out there, and there are different prices and different places you can get them. So the how might we is how might we help tax filers find all the different types of tax software and all the prices that they're offered at. So this is my, can you see that? I don't know how well this is. That might be really bad because it's on lined paper. Wait.
Would you mind just reading out what the text says? Cause we can see the image, but I can't quite read the.
Yeah. So like at the top, it says like tax software prices, and then there's like a search with a filter, and then these are just like different sections on like the app that like it says like your name, location, I can't like, okay, name, location, and then like the price. And then like on the side, there's like a more info tab. So in case you want to learn more about like whatever tax software it is. And at the bottom, there's like 4 icons, like one's like a home page, and then one's like price, and then another's like features. And the last one is ratings. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like kind of, it's easy for me to sort of understand what's going on because I have context for it. So you basically have like a website where people can compare like different tax software and like look at the price and things like that, right?
Yeah, and I think it satisfies your how might we and like the problem you're trying to solve, because like the main issue was like how overwhelming like all of the differences are, but like the breakdown for the categories on the bottom, like I feel like those are the spaces that a user would want to see the differences in. Yeah.
Sweet. I think now it's like where I explain my intentions. So yeah, that's exactly right. I just didn't, when I was thinking about it at first, I had another, I didn't do another sketch. I kind of just erased it, which probably wasn't what I was supposed to do. But so at first what I did was I kind of broke this away like differently, because I was kind of thinking of like the big picture and I wasn't thinking tax filing only. So then I just changed it so that it was just tax filing and then separated in these categories. So like home would have been for like if you like made a favorite for something, which now that I think about it, probably should have added that option. Like if you favorited something or you wanted to like learn more about something or like recently viewed, that's where you would see it like in your home, kind of like a dashboard of sorts. And then like prices would be where you like saw like all the tax software broken down by price. Not by anything else, just by price, and like maybe locations where you might find it, like Amazon might sell this tax filing software for some price, while the actual and then features would be like, so in every single tax filing software there's like different features, and so there would be like a breakdown of features for every single one. Maybe not all on one screen, but like just a place where you can like click on the filing software, and then you can see all those features. And then the last one, which was ratings, is like for other people to like go in and rate each one. So it's not just like one person saying like this is the best one, but like there are a bunch of ratings about how people have like actually used that software. Would say like, is it good, is it bad, what are some good things about it, what are some bad things about it. Yeah.
Does it actually, oh sorry, you go.
This is sort of random, but I don't know what your competitor analysis is, but an indirect thing that a website I really like is to help people compare medications. I can send it to you, but they really break it down by what people in different demographics said it worked for them. And in medicines, this is really important because a drug that works on women who are 50 may not work at all for men who are, 18 of Australian descent. I don't know, like whatever. I am in this category, and like I don't like. Just dismiss. And there's something about this that feels kind of general, and like I feel like even the software that I used when I was in college and wasn't making any money would be different now that I do make money. I just got married to a foreigner. I have no idea what his expenses are. And so one thing I really worry about is what people like me use. And maybe I constantly worry my situation's too complicated. Like maybe tax software doesn't handle this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily want the cheapest one. I want the easiest one that will suit me. So that's what because they're all basically pretty cheap. Like how much is the most expensive one? Like $100?
Probably, I would think so.
Yeah, I mean,
from the ones I've seen, the
difference between like $30 and $100 is not that great, given like that I want the highest tax return. So anyway, that I don't know if I'm in your user base or not, but I know that international people like my husband's like freak out every tax season because if they do it wrong, they go to jail or go back to their country, which is often like jail. Anyway, okay, I'm so sorry I have to break out of the other groups, but thank you for letting me.
Yeah.
All right, 1.5 minutes left. Sorry, I do a bad job of managing this when I'm also in a group, but I really wanted to see what it was like. Shit, and I'm the only one that can assign unassigned people. I should have been doing that. Fuck. Lesson learned. All right, I'm just gonna bring them all in.
There's an ice cream truck going around. I really hope.
Oh, I could use some ice cream.
Right? Well, I don't want the obnoxious jingle going.
Oh. That's that's my favorite song, is that jingle. Love the ice cream truck. All right, 30 seconds left. 20.
Lydia, we have a question
Mhm.
from someone who is in my breakout room, Katerina, who I think she might have also posted it.
Is it private? We could talk offline because everyone's coming back now. I can just look on.
Yeah.
All right, we're all back.
In my breakout session, we heard a presentation from Enda, which is very impressive. It was a very intriguing idea. And we actually got from her sketch, even though it was incredibly simple, we got what she was trying to do. And that was a reminder of the power of a sketch. And it was a useful discussion from 3 other people who were not steeped in her project, but came up with interesting ideas for how to make her idea even better. I think that we're approaching the end of this part of the session. So I'm going to hand back over to you, Laura, and I'll rejoin the spectators.
Sure. So we're running a little bit late. Oh, just a gentle reminder, Enda's just said I use no pronouns. So just to correct you there. And Perrin, how are you feeling about your workshop?
Let's go for it. 20 minutes. Let's see what we can get through. If not, we'll cover the rest of the content some other time.
Yeah.
We're going to be going through kind of portfolio deep dive and we'll look at what the industry kind of requires / is what it's looking for. This is true for design, but also other fields where you have a portfolio. We'll have a later workshop with Ishmael Berry. He's done a lot of cool stuff and he's done a lot of recruiting in the design field. There we'll talk more about resume, recruiting, whatnot. So whatever we can't cover in this portfolio section, we'll cover in a later workshop. I'm just going to share my screen real quick. Cool. Everyone can see the screen. Cool. Portfolio deep dive. I also just want to say that this, a lot of this deck is lifted from Lisa. She's a coworker of mine at Google. She just created this really kick-ass deck. I've kind of modified a bunch of it for our needs, but it's really good at showing kind of all the parts of a portfolio. So first off, I wanted to start off with like what it means to be a designer in the industry and just to further talk about all the different roles. And hopefully give that good foundation for you to start thinking about, oh, I want to make a portfolio. How do I want to brand myself as a designer? What does it mean to be a human-centered designer? I always love saying design is everything in you. Between you and everything else, everything's designed. And hopefully you can do that in a human-centered way. And so whether or not you're someone that's designing furniture, medical devices, apps, whatever, you can be a designer and you can apply human-centered design thinking to that. And you can create a badass like human-centered design portfolio around whatever you're creating. But just to go through some titles, user experience designer. This is a title used a lot. Usually people look at the different digital touch points. This is often a digital focused product. And they're really responsible for all of those touch points along a journey. Product designers are user experience designers with a little bit more business understanding. They usually are a bit more embedded in the product and have a little bit more control over the strategy. UX researcher, they look at the research process that you guys just did in the last 2 weeks. They do what you guys did in 2 weeks, but on steroids. It's really kick-ass. Alexi is doing a lot of UX research, and you heard a little bit about all the different methodologies that they pursue. There's service designers. So service designers look at non-digital touch points. For example, what it's like to subscribe to a service. What is it like to report a tree down to your city council? So you can also design non-digital touch points. And this is a lot of fun actually, because you don't have to draw any screens and you really get to focus on a service and an experience. There's UX engineering / design technologists. If you really enjoy this UX process, but you also enjoy CS, you can kind of dip your feet in both of them and do some UX stuff, but also proving with prototypes that you code that the UX that you're trying to build is something that's scalable by the code stack that's on your team. UX writers / content strategists. These people are amazing with kind of the content that you're putting out on your product. They work on everything from the micro copy on each dialogue on an app, all the way to what is the overall tone and voice of a product. You can talk to Laura more about this field. We have business designers. I honestly haven't met many business designers, but from my understanding, they're really looking at how do we integrate design thinking into iterating on the business model and creating a business model that's both sustainable for the business and sustainable for users. And lastly, there's a lot of design roles. There's a lot of terms here. And so I just want to say, look at job descriptions, look at different titles and different roles. Don't be afraid by all the jargon. Feel free to explore and talk to all different types of designers and find your niche. And here you can kind of see, you have developer, visual design, and UX strategy. I kind of see these as the 3 types of roles that you could have on a digital team. Really looking at the visual design, the business and user values as a strategist, and whether or not you can build it. I see myself kind of here. And so you can look at this kind of spectrum to understand where do I fit best and maybe what is a right title for me to look at. And I also want to very quickly share my design journey to say, there are all of these different roles, but you can move between them. I started out at Columbia in quantum computing, then landed a role at a lab doing industrial design work. And then I was a product designer at a startup. Then I did service design consulting, and then I did a UX design and research internship. And now, actually my role title is interaction designer for full time. So feel free to explore on the spectrum as much as possible, these niches. And I always say, you'll best understand the difference between these role titles by being at companies that embody these role titles. So don't be scared of all the different titles, just go for it. If it has the word designer and you're a human-centered designer, you can do it. But just wanted to kind of share a little bit more about the terminology. So where can you be a designer? You can do it in tech, nonprofits, freelance, government, agencies, consulting. You don't just have to go to Google. You don't just have to go to Frog. There are a lot of other places that need design thinking as well. And what do you need to get a job in this industry? You need a resume, portfolio. You need to be prepared to tell your story of who you are as a designer and what's your perspective. Today, we're going to focus mainly on the portfolio bit and see how much we can get through. I'm going to skip questions, but what should you put in your portfolio? I say there's tons of stuff. You can put class projects from classes you can take at Columbia. You can put design sprints like this one this summer. You can put internship takeaways, case studies. You can do the hackathon with ADI later this summer and put whatever output you get from that. Just know that you don't just have to put a case study. There are a lot of different things you can put into a portfolio. And what does a good portfolio project include? I always think it's important to talk about what the problem is and why it's important. What are the factors, both internally and externally, that affect this project? So, for example, if you're redesigning the CU shuttle service, it's important to know, New York City has a lot of external factors around transportation that affect how you think about a campus shuttle bus. If you want Columbia to ship it as well, you have to think about the internal factors of Columbia and what they are able to build in their technology stack. Internal factors we don't consider as much if we're just doing a case study, but on a real project, you kind of want to highlight what those factors were that you were moving through. Also, going through the rationale that drives your design process, really showing that you're not doing a cookie cutter design process, that there's thinking behind each part that you choose to do, each method that you use, and the final deliverables, and really displaying how you create an impact. We'll help you with kind of documenting your design process and kind of documenting the final deliverables in later weeks. But to make it easy for you, outline, story, impact is the way that I usually go about documenting my portfolio pieces. And storytelling, I always say, make people feel something. Take them on the wild journey of this design process. It feels crazy to you. Make them understand that craziness, that chaos that you went through, and the learnings, the discoveries that you had along the way. So tell that story. I actually have something in the way here. And kind of all stories have a beginning, middle, and end. And here I'm kind of saying, in the beginning, give the big hero, give the big banner. This is the magical thing we created. Here are the key final designs. The middle is process, curated sketches, flows, all the craziness that you went through, all the stuff that you're documenting right now. And then the end is, the findings that you had, the final beauty shots, the links to any prototypes so that people can actually try out the designs that you've built. Here's an example project outline. Kind of we're right here. We're about to get into sketches. So you guys are making really great progress. And you've already documented all of this stuff along the way just by handing in those weekly, pseudo assignments. And as we get into sketches, design flows, curated explorations, final polishing of designs, you'll kind of already have the project outline just by going through the 6 weeks. Also use this as a baseline, not a checklist. We've said last week that every design project is different, it has different needs. Sometimes you need to go back and do more user research. Sometimes you need to go back and look at different competitors. Sometimes you need to go back to the drawing board and do more sketches. You don't have to go through this design process 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Show the 1, 2, 5, 6, 4, 3, 5, 6, because that's how it actually works in the real world. And don't be afraid to kind of break out of that checklist if you think that you can get a purpose or kind of solve some new problems with different methodologies. And checklists are boring and won't make your portfolio stand out. And as I said, they really don't represent what the design process is, both in the real world and what you guys are going through right now. Also, show, don't tell, and kind of keep text short, simple, sweet, get to the point, make sure that it's easy to skim, but also you have the juicy content in there. Work requires explanations. This design process requires explanations, but also try and let the designs speak for themselves. Here's an example. If you've got a couple images here and just paragraphs and running paragraphs of text, maybe try reducing it, see how much you can refine it. If you do have a complex process, you can include a final process deck that includes all of this text. So I always suggest kind of linking out to this heavy content if you want to show heavy process, but when you're going through a portfolio piece, kind of get to the point, get to what you learned in this process and the kind of methodologies that you used. Also try and make the page layout dynamic. You can attempt this, use negative space. Kind of treat this as if it's a little design of itself. Use different sizes of images, use GIFs and videos. And so here's an example. This is a boring grid. There's no visual rhythm to this. It's just text, image, text, image. If you're able to, and I know that this is kind of hard when you're a beginner, kind of change up this variation and have a nice hero splash image, include that negative breathing space, have the digestible text, include a video. Maybe take a video of your process and take videos of you sketching, put together a vision video at the end. This just helps break up the content and kind of give you different mediums to express your designs in. Gonna skip any questions so far. We're gonna look at the higher structure of portfolios. We kind of talked about projects, but what does the portfolio casing look like? I'll talk about recruiter psychology first, because this kind of frames what a portfolio should look like. The recruiter is the user for your portfolio, unless you're in a comfortable job just showing off to the world. Recruiters, your user has a 10-second attention span. I've seen this on the analytics of my own portfolio. You will see people that come from, X company, recruiting platform, come to your portfolio, they'll look at your portfolio for 10 seconds, maybe click one project, and then they'll bounce off. And so being aware that, your user has this kind of limited time span that they're looking at your site, and design for that. This is your user, take those constraints. And so for the home page, include clear project titles. Here you have Google Internship, created mobile and web tools for students and instructors using Google Classrooms. Helios, smart blanket for an improved sleep cycle. I don't even have to click into these projects to see the level of design this person has and the different deliverables that they created. And so I can already get that nice preview with these clear project titles. Have nice page hierarchy, kind of guide the user through the flow of cool, there's the logo, easy navigation, something simple at the top. There's the name, there's an intro, and there's some project thumbnails to give me an overview of what you can do. And lastly, number of projects. You're only as good as the worst project in your portfolio. When recruiters hop on your portfolio and you have 20 projects and they click one, they're only possibly going to look through 1, 2, maybe 3 projects. So if they look at, not your shining, beautiful project, they're only going to see kind of the worst of you. And so we always recommend kind of having 3 to 6, depending on length, scope, variety, so that you're curating the research, curating the experience that the recruiter goes through looking at your portfolio website. And projects should be diverse. If you're doing design in a digital space and you have, cool, I've created this app redesign, I've created this app redesign, I've created this other app redesign, it doesn't show much versatility. Try kind of diversifying the mediums that you're designing in or the people that you're designing for to show the flexibility and that you're able to adapt to different design problems. Navigation, keep it simple and intuitive. Make sure you can access homepage from anywhere. At the bottom of a project, make sure that it's easy to access another project. You don't want to have someone scroll through your whole process and then have to scroll all the way up to come back to the homepage and select another project. And make sure to have very clear about me and contact information for any recruiters that might land in your portfolio. Side projects, stuff that may not be related to your core role, 100% include that. It's important to show your different perspectives that you bring to design, especially at Columbia. We don't have a design major. So show the other cool work that you've been doing and what else you've been learning at Columbia, because that provides you special skills that people that go to design schools don't have. Just make sure they enhance, not distract. This usually means putting them towards the bottom, putting them on their own page, just to show those fun side explorations. And contact info, make sure it's super easy to find at least your email and your LinkedIn. This is really critical for making it easy for a recruiter to reach out to you if they're interested. Here's some recommended website builders that you can use if you don't code. If you do code, which I know we have a bunch of CS people here, feel free to go for it. I can code, I can build a website, but I actually prefer a website builder because it makes me move a little bit faster and allows me to document a little bit more quickly. I'm using Webflow now, but I recommend Squarespace. I also know people use Wix and Weebly and Notion for portfolios, and that works well. And what I will say is, like, there's going to be a lot of templates that are super kick-ass and amazing. Try to modify them to your unique self. Try to make some edits so that your portfolio doesn't look like everyone else that's used that template. Just a side note for website builders. Yep, don't use a portfolio template, or if you do, like, at least edit it. Also, try and remove the Powered by Squarespace bottom part. Try and change up the domain, try and get your own domain name, and try to change the fave icon. These are all things that kind of show that you have your own brand, that you have your own domain, that you have your own kind of establishment as a designer. And given time, I don't think I'm going to have time to go through many examples. I've got a few, but I'll send the rest out. I'll just kind of look at the splash pages for these. This is Kathleen. She's done some interning. She's from UC Berkeley. I really love her page because she's kind of put this fun creative coding thing in. And as you move around, it changes the background. It shows that she can do fun custom coding things. And, you know, I'm a designer who believes in creating beautifully engineered products to empower people. Very clear call to action for more about her. Very clear short about me. And you can see different types of projects. This is a case study. This is kind of looking at her takeaways from an internship. Not all portfolio projects have to be super crazy process heavy. So I really liked her portfolio. I really wanted to highlight Shelby. She's a friend of mine. She's an amazing queer Black woman in the design industry. And she, on her portfolio, highlights some really cool projects. She worked on an asthma campaign, and she really applied the design thinking process to that campaign. And so I wanted to show, you know, communication, campaigns, you can design stuff more than just products and show a human-centered design process to that. She also helped build out a center to help women build sewing skills. It was a sewing school. And she talks about how she went through the process and prototyping kind of this sewing school and helping them expand and brand themselves. And just showing, and now she's doing design at Microsoft in the digital tech space. But I just want to show, you know, you don't just have to show, I redesigned Uber, I redesigned this company, I redesigned, you know, SSOL. You can show the unique projects and the unique perspective that you bring. And I really love her about me. You know, I'm a visual and user experience designer, passionate about solving problems. I tackle issues that affect people and support positive communities, equity, and the amplification of underrepresented voices. And you can see that in all of her portfolio pieces. And I just think that's kick-ass. And now she does inclusive design for Microsoft as an intern. So don't be afraid to show what makes you uniquely you. And lastly, I really enjoyed this portfolio. Someone I chatted with recently, they had this really cool navigation up here that's works, words, and worlds, other explorations. And just get creative. You know, it's good to have simple navigation, but be open to showing your other explorations. Be open to showing maybe some articles that you write if you enjoy writing. And I just thought that her works are very clean, easy to skim, and she has, you know, nice little pieces of text to understand what her deliverables were. And one more that I will show. This is Nicholas. They are a developer advocate. I don't remember which company now, but they've used Notion for free to create a website. Notion is super simple to use. And let me see if I can find it. The navigation is so-so, but it's easy to create kind of a list of projects, and you can kind of open them and see some of their process. And I really liked, you know, how they've used Notion to create a portfolio that was super simple, easy to build, move fast, move quick. So I will send out more portfolio examples that I would have gone through. And I'll wrap it up with portfolio imposter syndrome, looks at other design portfolios, develops major depression. This is a big thing in the design community. I will say you will never be happy with your portfolio. It's a big joke that everyone's always redesigning their portfolio. I'm redesigning my portfolio right now, and just know that taking the first step to get somewhere is the most important step. Always be moving forwards towards better, always make those micro changes to make your portfolio better, and eventually you'll get where you want. And just to flash what my old portfolios looked like, back when I was doing quantum computing, I had like the most simplest portfolio that was just an about me. And then after that, I put on Adobe Portfolio some little projects. My human-centered design project with Harry West class was here, and a few others. And I'm telling you, these portfolios are garbage compared to like what I've showed you today. And that's okay, because I got started somewhere and eventually I landed on the portfolio that I have today. And I just wanted to advocate that you all work towards an MVP. Where to start? This is kind of the final slide. Get a domain and set up your hosting. I have some tips and tricks. Sketch your portfolio on paper. Write all your copy on Google Docs before you decide to ship it. And just put up a bio on your portfolio, put 1 to 2 projects up, and just put it out to the world. Just get over that scaredness of putting out this kind of product out to the world, and go for it and iterate from there. And that is the 45-minute workshop in 20 minutes, finishing on time. Oh, and resources, portfolio guides, find more good portfolio examples, domain name places, free hosting platforms. My fave website builders, along with other ones, are all in this deck, which we will share out ASAP.
That was an heroic effort. Maybe we should open up for questions, but if you don't have a question or you don't want to hear questions, feel free to go. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining in with everything. Yeah, anyone got questions?
While we're waiting for questions, Harry, what are your thoughts on portfolios? Any thoughts?
So the purpose of a portfolio is to get a job. Well, actually, that's not true. I think a major purpose of a portfolio is to prove to yourself what you have done and who you are. I think that's probably the major purpose. And then secondarily, you use it to show other people who you are, what you've done. And, you know, I have looked at thousands of portfolios in various capacities. And my experience has been that it's important to kind of establish that you're a potential player in the space. But what I've always advised people is don't rely on your portfolio to get a job, because it probably won't. if you're anxious to get a job, you need an entree into a company. So find somebody who works in that company or who knows somebody who works in that company. Set up an informational interview. You just need to make, which is impossible today because everything's closed. So put that on hold for 6 months. But when things open up again, set up an informational interview. Find some reason to be engaged in a one-on-one interaction with somebody in that company and be interesting in that moment, because then maybe they will suggest to somebody else, you should talk to this person. My experience has been that most people get a job not through the objective portfolio resume way, but by finding some way to have a direct personal connection with somebody in a company. And so don't let the time you spend on the portfolio get in the way of building those other connections.
That is phenomenal advice. I will echo right now, we're kind of at an advantage being all online and all digital. A lot of amazing conferences are super accessible to you right now. And you know, a lot of my personal job offers have also been from connections made at conferences. And the portfolio is important for you getting the first interview after you get referred, and to show your work, but it's not going to always be the step in the front door. It's more like the side door to the kitchen, if that makes sense. So look out on the resources channel. I've noticed already that some people have shared great meetups and great conferences that are free to go to. If you have the time and bandwidth, I would go 100%. Who knows who you could meet?
We have a question from Adriana.
Yeah.
I'll read it out loud for people who are watching online. Do you suggest coding from scratch if we know how when making a portfolio, or to use a website maker? Do recruiters care much about using website maker versus using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript?
I will say they don't care unless you're a UX engineer. If you're a UX engineer, you may want to show more fun interactiveness and proof that you can code and build things in real life. But if you're just in the design space, no one's really going to know whether or not you built it yourself or if it's Squarespace unless they go snooping in your code and your source code. I would suggest trying out a website maker or builder for free. A great one is Webflow because it's very coding driven and you can actually export the HTML, CSS, and JS and continue building on it from there. So yeah, I would suggest Webflow if you want to try out coding because you can also custom inject code. And if you get to the point where you're like, cool, Webflow did its job for helping you get started, I can code the rest. You can completely ditch Webflow, only pay for a month with them, and code the rest yourself. So that's probably a nice happy medium.
Cool.
Sketch on paper first.
Harry, if we could pick your brain with another question, you might be the person best to answer this. We have students doing app redesign as one of their projects. So with an app redesign prompt, when testing the MVP, do we present only the feature we are changing or adding in the context of the app, or should we approach this as an A/B test?
Whoa, that's a tough question.
Mm.
So, I mean, when you do an A/B test, you generally do the A/B test with different people. So,
can you quickly explain what an A/B test is?
So, when an A/B test is you create two designs, design A and design B. You put them both out there simultaneously. And if you're a company like Google, you can run A/B tests. Actually, you can run the whole alphabet of tests simultaneously with thousands of people because you've got thousands of users. And so we are, as users of the internet, are participating in A/B testing probably every day. You may have noticed that when you go on Instagram or Google, every now and then, the user experience changes in some subtle way. That's because you are participating in an A/B test at that moment. Some companies, like Booking.com, their entire business is built by massive A/B testing. and they're running thousands of experiments simultaneously throughout forever. And 100% of the design decisions are being made not by a designer, but by the users who the company is detecting when they use design A, they sold more than when people were using design B. So design A wins. So if you're doing an app redesign, then you're essentially doing some type of A/B test, right? Because there's the original design and now there's your design. And so one way to test that is to put both designs in front of one person and get qualitative feedback on their experience of that design. And that's normally how we would do it, because normally you don't have access to thousands of people to evaluate your ideas. If you did have access to thousands of people, then you would put, suppose you did have access to 1,000 people, you would put design A in front of 500 and design B in front of the other 500, and you would see which one worked best. You're probably not going to do that in this class because you probably don't have the ability to run a large-scale A/B test. So I would recommend putting both designs in front of a user and getting qualitative feedback from individual users on both designs.
Quick tip, make sure to switch up which one you show first. This is just a little user research tip. There is some bias on which design you show first, and yeah, just make sure to be cognizant and see if there's any kind of bias that's showing up in your results because of that.
Yeah, good point.
We have another question, or a follow-up question actually. Should we keep the app we are redesigning unknown? I don't know if that's possible. I know Katerina's project, and I think Spotify is a pretty recognizable interface. We have another question, which is, how far back in time should our displayed projects be? I think this is regarding portfolios. Like right now, I have a lot of projects at the high school level, but as I progress through college, should I take them off or move them as they become less relevant? I think to reiterate what Perrin said earlier about your portfolios is only as good as your worst project. Hopefully the projects that you do in college will be an improvement on the projects that you do in high school, because you learn more skills. So yeah, I think I would keep that in mind. Perrin or Harry?
Sorry, I agree with what you just said, by the way, Laura. Can I show a slide?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I have just one slide to show on A/B testing, which I think some people might find interesting. Give me a second. Can you see this page?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a page from a presentation I did a couple of years ago, and it's taken directly out of an article by Stephan Tomke, a friend of mine at Harvard Business School. And it describes an A/B test, and there's thousands of examples like this, but this is one example at Bing, which is, the search engine part of Microsoft. Sorry, Perrin. And what you'll see here is they were exploring the difference between two different colors. On the left is A, the control color, treatment. And then on the right is the treatment color, the new color. And what they found through randomized testing of these two colors, that using the treatment color boosted revenue by more than $10 million a year. So color matters, design matters, the nuance in a design matters.
That's a great example.
Mm-hmm.
I am seeing some questions about portfolio stuff more. I would say if you have a try and get to 2 projects And if you have 2 really good case studies / projects, 100% you can get an internship. I know Alexi got his internship with Apple by just showing 1 project in a presentation. So having 1 really good project where you show a good process is more important than having 3 or 4 projects that are just hastily done. So if you only have 1 project in your portfolio so far, don't worry about it. Make that 1 project like your star project, and maybe try doing another side project to make it 2, just to show a little bit of variety. And feel free to bring stuff in from your high school if you feel like it shows, you know, solid work that's up to date in your design skills. As you continue to design and practice this skill, you can eventually cycle out that work. And lastly, if you're interviewing for a company and something you did in high school is super relevant, I'm trying to think of an example. Like if you're interviewing at like Uber and you did some sort of like fun, give your friends a ride to school program at your high school, and you design this whole experience for people to ride share, and then you end up interviewing at Uber and you have a project from that, like feel free to bring in whatever projects are most relevant to the company that you're interviewing at. So you can show a curated like 3 to 6 projects in your portfolio, but that doesn't dictate what projects you show further in your recruiting process. So keep a nice like list and archive of your old projects and fun explorations. Oh yeah, some people are considering taking your class next semester, Human Centered Design and Innovation. Is there anything you wanted to plug about that? Or if anyone had any questions, maybe message the chat.
I would love folks from this team to take my class. It's going to be a very interesting class. I think it's going to be partly on campus and partly remote, but that's just my guess right now. I think we're going to learn more in July. But everybody here is clearly enthusiastic and they're going to be super well prepared. So we'll be able to make good progress. And part of Perrin's portfolio came out of our class a couple of years ago. And part of Alexei's portfolio, actually, pretty much the whole of Alexei's portfolio came out of our class. So it has, we have a proof of success.
Yeah. I don't remember Angel, the project that you showed earlier with the shampoo bottle. She's at Facebook and she showed that project as well.
Fantastic. Warms my heart.
So, yeah.
Okay. Doesn't look like we have any more questions. So with that, shall we wrap up? Great, brilliant. Thank you so much, Harry, for joining us today and for staying extra long to answer questions and offer your insight and expertise. It is very, very much valued.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
Great, okay, I'm gonna end the call. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for staying.
Bye.